The best journalism lands with such impact that it changes the national conversation. That's what Rolling Stone thought it had with its shocking account of a gang rape at the University of Virginia. Now, some 6 months after the story started unraveling, it's still very much part of the national conversation, but as a glaring example of journalistic malpractice. A work of journalism about a failure of journalism. That's how Columbia Journalism Review summarizes its investigation into Rolling Stone's ill-fated story, a rape on campus. But even worse.
The failure was avoidable.
The article told the story of Jackie, a University of Virginia freshman who is sadistically gang raped at a frat house and met with shocking apathy from her friends.
Not one more!
The article roiled the UVA campus, even as Jackie's account steadily unraveled. In the end, CJR says Rolling Stone left too many stones unturned. Writer Sabrina Rubin Ederle and her editors staked their reputations on a single source. Ederle failed to corroborate Jackie's account, like interviewing her friends. The accused fraternity was not given a fair chance to respond. But beyond apologies and retractions, no heads are rolling at Rolling Stone. Editor Will Dana says, Sabrina's done great work for us over the years, and we expect that to continue. That's left a bad taste at UVA.
Even if you take Jackie out of this account, Sabrina Ederle still misrepresented UVA and its students.
As for Phi Kappa Psi, the fraternity accused in the gang rape, they're probably asking the now classic question: where do we go to get our reputation back? There's still a lot of mystery around this story. I mean, if there was a Jackie, did she have a motive for fabricating this story? I mean, Columbia Journalism Review did a good job, but maybe there was even more to get. I mean, debriefing her friend, she had said something to her friends, but what exactly did she say? Was there any kind of an incident? I mean, maybe she was involved in something. That often happens when you yourself have been drinking or something like that, and apparently she had in that case. But I don't think it's done.
Yeah, I mean, she declined to talk to the investigators, so it was difficult to get that piece of it. I thought the report did a good job in looking at the issues. I was stunned that the reporter, at an absolute minimum, was not fired. I cannot imagine running a magazine and thinking after seeing every step at which she chose not to follow up on obvious questions, which she chose not to verify verifiable facts. After all that, I can't imagine keeping her on my magazine. And I have a hard time thinking that, and at least one or two editors shouldn't be gone as well. It's remarkable that in that context, though, that a lot of the discussion was around how we shouldn't blame Jackie. That Jackie is not to blame. Steve Call, the dean of the journalism school, said she is not to blame for this. And I understand why she's not at fault for Rolling Stone's journalism sins. Those are Rolling Stone's problems. But I think she does deserve some blame for making at the very least, making up an enormous amount of stuff. Whether there was a real incident that is in some way related to this is unclear. The real issue here is that this reporter really went out to find the perfect anecdote to try and prove the point that she wanted to make. There was a story about how she approached some people at Yale about some rapes that had allegedly happened there, and she deemed them not explosive enough. This is a real thing that journalists need to watch out for when you have a narrative in your mind and you go hunting for facts to match that pattern.
You know, I don't think there's anything to learn from this journalistically because Rolling Stone's behavior was so egregiously awful. You can't point to, oh, but for the grace of God could go any of us. No, this is just beyond belief. One source who was not fully identified in the story, that was the basis for the whole story. One thing I do want to point out, when you get toward the end of the Columbia Journalism Review overview, they weigh in with some experts on how to avoid doing stuff like this in the future. And Kristen Lombardi, who I had the honor of working with at the Boston Phoenix, talks about how she's reported on campus rapes for the Center for Public Integrity. And what she says is absolutely right. Obviously, you want to be sympathetic and understanding of the women who tell you that they're victims, but you verify everything and you let them know ahead of time, if I'm going to tell your story, I have to verify it. That's journalism.
I would say that the lesson to learn here is actually for the public about how our business works. Because what Steve Cull and the folks at the Columbia Journalism Review did was outline very clearly, no, we don't just make stuff up. No, we don't like just say, oh, well, I'm not going to ask that person what they thought just because I'm just not going to. That's just because I believe something else happened. That's not how it's supposed to work. And I don't know about you, but I run into people all the time who believe that is how it works. So if no other reason, this is a huge example of journalists saying, this is not what we do. This is not what it's supposed to look like. And in fact, if there is a real story, you can tell your real story because we're going to document it and show what the real facts are. So that to me is the most important thing that came out of it. The other basic lessons are, really? Didn't we get this when we first started out doing this job? I mean, really? You're not going to call anybody? I just am stunned by that. And I'm with Josh on this. You know, I never want anybody to lose their job. But in this one, I thought, this is terrible.
Well, you know what I thought was so incredible? You can see where you're a young reporter, you get someone that it's a rape victim, especially as gruesome a rape as this was described to be, or someone that's, you know, families, members lost, whatever. You can see where a young reporter could be overly sympathetic, but that's why you have editors, so that when you go back and they say, well, that's great, but you've got to explain, as you pointed out in your piece, Dan Kennedy, that Kristen Lombardi did, we just can't go with a single source on a story like this. So it's made me think, even though this is totally outrageous, can't imagine anybody doing this, it makes me really wonder about Rolling Stone, that I'd always kind of held in rather high esteem. I mean, they've done a lot of great work over the years, but you say, wow, I mean, we've all made mistakes, but this wasn't a mistake.
Didn't the editor press her on that?
Exactly.
Well, that's what you wonder. I mean, you say you have to go after it, try to get these alleged rapists, and my goodness, the three friends. Who's ever done a story?
They were skeptical from the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes.
and who's ever done a magazine piece with one source?
Yeah.
Unless it's some puff piece about
she was
somebody's
dismissive
book.
of those friends' accounts. I don't think she wanted to hear it.
There are no heroes in the report, but the fact checkers at Rolling Stone actually did push back, and consistently editors or the reporter said, don't worry about it, we're fine.